Welcome to another episode of Roll Up a Power Up. So get your blunts rolled and your drink poured. Alright, now look, so for this one, this gonna be about innocent people that go to prison. You know what I'm saying? Now look, before I get into the reaction that I'm about to show y'all, I want to give you a little backdrop on somebody that I didn't spoke on before. Now, y'all might have not heard this because I spoke on this earlier in my journey with doing YouTube, but let me go ahead and give it to you again. So, when I first went to prison in 2012, I was in there with a guy named Justly Johnson. Justly Johnson. That was his name. He was an older guy from the east side of Detroit. Basically, what happened with him was he left out one night, to go to the store. The police ended up pulling him over. They took him to jail. Took him to jail on a murder one. He had nothing to do with it. So what happened was it was a white woman, and she had her little son in the back seat with her. Her son was probably like 5 years old or something. So they pulled up in the hood so she can get some drugs. You know what I'm saying? Now, when they pulled up, she thought she was just going to get her hit and, going on about her business. Well, when they got there, a guy ran up to the car, boom, blew her brains out, right? Blew her brains out, took off. So the son was still in the back seat. So he seen what happened. You know what I'm saying? So by the time the police got to the scene, they grabbed the little boy. They like, hey, did you see who did this? Blah, blah, blah. So, of course, the boy only 5 years old. He only can say so much. So he like, yeah, it was a black bald head guy, right, with glasses. So this is what the police did. They went, scouring through the hood, trying to find a black bald head guy with glasses. Boom, they found Justly Johnson, and they locked him up. So when they locked him up, they had the kid point him out in a lineup, and the kid pointed him out. Mind you, the kid was only 5 years old at the time, So here it is, fast forward to tape. That happened back in the 90s, late 90s, somewhere around there. Now this 2012, when I'm in prison with him, and he telling me his story. At this point, he had like 13, 14 years in. The guy was so miserable and stressed out, he just couldn't believe it. Now, I didn't told y'all before, it's a lot of guys that's in prison, everybody say they innocent, So after a while, you get tired of hearing that I'm innocent. Nigga, you ain't here, you got caught up. You know what I'm saying? But he was determined to prove his innocence. And he would tell us his story all the time, And he like, I'm going to get back, I'm waiting on my appeal. They ain't had no evidence on me, blah, 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 all of that type of stuff, right? All right, so fast forward to tape some more. Now this about 2017, 2018, something like that. I'm out of prison now. I done did my time. I'm out. I'm living life, right? I cut on the news one day. I see him, Justly Johnson, on the news. So he got his case overturned, and he won. So he got out, He got out. Something about, I guess the state was supposed to be like reimbursing him like $7 million for his time lost. See, they do that kind of stuff when they wrongfully convict you. They throw you a couple of dollars to get you out the way. Like, all right, yeah, we convicted you wrongfully or whatever. You did 20 years, blah, blah, blah. All right, here go $3 million. That's their settlement. They settlement is to give you a couple of dollars to get you out the way. Mind you, that money didn't cost them nothing. And they made that money off of you 20 times over just for being in their system. So that little couple $1 million that they throw at you for you doing 20 years of your time is not level at all. At all. You know what I'm saying? And then that couple $1 million that they give you, they tax that shit. So even if they did give him $7 million, he might only got about $4 million of it. They didn't, tax the hell out of him. And all the life he got to catch up on because he didn't miss a good 20 years of his life. 20 years of your life for $7 million, would you do it? I think not. So anyway, he got his case overturned. He was telling the truth. It wasn't him. Come to find out, the little 5-year-old boy that pointed him out in the lineup, well, here it is 20 years later. The little boy grown now. He decided to come back and tell the system, hey, that wasn't the guy that killed my mother. I just said it was him so somebody could be convicted for the case. I was only 5 years old. I didn't know better. You know, the little boy don't get in no trouble. None of that. Well, you know, the white boy, he don't get in no trouble with none of that. You know, so that's how they overturned this case, was because the boy grew up and came out and said, hey, it wasn't him. So now justly got his freedom after 20 years of a wrongful conviction. And my whole point of that is this right here. I need y'all to check this out so y'all can understand what I be saying about wrongful convictions. I'm going to say this right now, and I'm going to say this at the end. When you go to jail, you are guilty until proven innocent. You are only innocent when you're free. When you're free, you're innocent until proven guilty. When you become a product of the system, when you get arrested, when them handcuffs slap on your wrist, you are guilty until proven innocent. Let me go ahead with the video now. Let's go.
A man who spent nearly 3 decades behind bars is now a free man. A judge vacated his convictions and the court approved his release last night.
WGN's Christine Flores caught up with Johnson, who talks about his first night out of prison.
Good evening. Johnson was smiling from ear to ear when we caught up with him today. He describes what his first time at an arcade was like and what it's been like to be physically surrounded by family members. While he says he's still adjusting to his new life, he says he still wants to work with those who, just like him, were wrongfully convicted.
I'm on top of the world. I feel amazing.
Y'all see that glow on his face?
Those are Robert Johnson's feelings after walking as a free man from the Cook County Jail nearly 24 hours ago.
I was laying in the bed earlier, and I heard some noise, and it's the noise that you hear when they come through and count in prison. And I raised up, and I'm like, oh, they not counting. I'm home. You know, I don't have to worry about being a number.
Johnson's first stop last night was Grandma's house.
She never left me. It was surreal. It really was. To walk back in that house, because the last time I walked out of that house, that was the last time I seen that house for almost 29 years.
Johnson was just 16 years old when he was arrested in the 1996 murder of Eddie Binion. Just after 6:30 Thursday evening, Johnson walked out of the jail gates with family members by his side. They made a stop at Dave & Buster's,
which is a first for me, and I really had a good time. It was unbelievable. At one point, I just got up, walked away from the crowd, and just took it all in. It was a real moment for me.
Johnson was wrongfully convicted of first-degree murder, armed robbery, and home invasion. His defense says years ago, during the trial, there was no physical evidence or eyewitnesses connecting Johnson to the crime. A juvenile co-defendant agreed to a plea deal in exchange for his false testimony.
This kid was facing 80 years in prison and offered 15. And that's the only person to testify against Robert at trial. The evidence is incredibly weak.
There is an arresting officer that Johnson clearly recalls.
I remember him. He was the motivating force. They followed his lead. All them detectives, they followed his lead. And he did it as if, again, he knew that he wasn't going to be held accountable. And that's the way he moved when he rushed me out of my grandmother's house. Honestly, I wish he can go to prison so he can experience what I did. It was real dehumanizing being in that place.
For Johnson, his partnership with the Exoneration Project is not done yet.
I would like to be a paralegal. That's what I'm hoping. Maybe for the Exoneration Project, right? Yeah, that's something I'm interested in. And trying to help people that have experienced the same things that I have.
Johnson does have a hearing scheduled for March 13th. It is then that prosecutors will say whether or not they will appeal the decision in his case. Reporting in the northwest suburbs, Christine Flores, WGN News.
All right. Now look. So for that, right, I got a couple points that I want to speak on, right? Now look. Number one, as a black man in America, and I know y'all done heard this a lot, but guess what? We are guilty at all times. That's just what it is. That's just the truth. Now, don't get me wrong, other races begin wrongfully convicted too. But I'm speaking on the black people, black men. Because I done been in prison with a guy that was wrongfully convicted. Just for me to see him on TV years later get his case overturned. And he had nothing to do with the crime. Same thing with this situation, right? This happened about a week and a half ago, right? And I came across the story. So when I was listening to it, I'm like, man, this is exactly what happens to us all the time. It's always a wrongful conviction. You know, bro ain't had nothing to do with what was going on. He had a co-defendant. I don't know how the hell this happened with his co-defendant. All of what y'all seen is all I got on this case. But to me, what it sounds like is his co-defendant is the one that did this shit and like tagged him in it. You know, somehow, some way, however the co-defendant played it, but put him in the mix of it. This is what I'm thinking. I don't know, but this is what I'm getting out of it. Because they saying he had a co-defendant that had took some time. So that only could mean that the co-defendant somehow mixed him up in this case, right? Another thing, Broden did 30 years. 29, 30 years in prison on a wrongful conviction. So he done lost 30 years of his life. Could you imagine losing 30 years of your life? He was 16 when he went in. So he like 45 now. That man is 45 years old and he looked like he about 20. No homo. He looked good for his age. And that's what prison do to you. Prison preserves the body. If you eat right, you take care of yourself, you exercise, you keep a positive mind frame during your time, it preserves you, you know? And that's clearly what you can see on this man's face. He's been preserved. Yeah, he had to do 30 years, but he got preserved, you know? So anyway, with him, you know, having this going on, and he had to appeal his case. Now, I done told y'all, as soon as you get locked up and they, you know, the judge sends you and everything, they take you back to a little holding cell before you go back to the county jail or go out to prison, however they ship you, right? You go into a little holding cell and they come with the appeal papers right there. So it ain't like you got to wait on the appeal papers or none of that. They come right with that shit. You know what I'm saying? So soon as you get sentenced, say the judge sends them to 30 years. Soon as bro went into that back room, the cops came right behind him with the appeal paper. He put the appeal in right there. All you got to do is sign your name and the date. That's all you got to do. You don't got to proofread anything. You don't have to have your lawyer look over nothing. You don't got to do none of that. It's strictly an appeal of your sentence. You're saying that you're innocent and that you want these courts to look into your case to bring you back on the overturn. So all you have to do is just sign it, stating that, yes, I'm innocent. I want to appeal, right? Another thing, I done told y'all about Junebug. How Junebug was trying to get back on the appeal. And I broke all that shit down. How appeal be at least 20 years before you even get called back on the appeal. You would do a good 20 years before you even get called back on the appeal, right? Well, what did you just hear the woman say in the end, right? The prosecutors will make a decision on to appeal his case. What do you mean they will make a decision to appeal his case? The case was overturned. He was found not guilty. That should be an immediate speedy trial right back in the court right now. That man got convicted on that case 30 years ago. What is he waiting on? He was found innocent. Get that man back in court. Get that shit off his record. Get him his money. Because you can't get him back his time, so give him his money that y'all owe him. See, this is how the courts play it. It's been 30 years. And they still talking about they going to make a decision on if they going to bring him back on the appeal or not. After 30 years. So like I was saying before with the appeals, you going to be waiting a good 20 years on the appeal. Don't think that you about to get sentenced to 20, 30 years and you appeal and you think you will be back in 2 or 3 years on the appeal. It don't happen. I ain't heard of nobody get back on the appeal anything under like 15 years. Unless they was completely innocent. It wasn't no evidence of them being at the crime scene. They got proof that they wasn't there. They got all type of innocent projects on their case, things like that. A person like that might get back on 10 years or something like that. But for the most part, you're going to be in prison for about a good 20 years before you get called back on the appeal. This man did 30 years and still got his case overturned. And now they still talking about, hey, we'll call him back to see if we're going to appeal it. See, this is what I be saying, man. It's like you get in that system, you cook, man. You know? So what I told y'all before, that prison is not for you. Because you think that you can commit a little crime, you might know a law or two or something, you know how appeals work and all that, and you think you commit a crime and you're going to get back on the appeal. Listen, you be done did your time before you got appealed. Unless you got a life bid, it really ain't even no point of appealing your case. Honestly. Appeals is more so for like the lifers. They don't got nothing to do. They don't have no time limit. They just there. That's what appeals is really for. People like them. If you don't got that much time, an appeal is not for you. And I done told y'all before, I appeal my case as well. Even though I only got sentenced to 4 years, I appeal my shit too. Because that offer is on the table for everybody. That's just what it is. I've been out of prison 10 years. I caught my case 2011. It's 2025. That was 14 years ago. I caught my case. I still ain't heard nothing about an appeal. That shit went straight out the window. You know what I'm saying? So this just go to show you, because even with me being free and out and all of that, they still can mail me and say, hey, we accepted your appeal, and they still could bring me back to court. Even with me being free and everything, they still could bring me back to court and say, hey, you know what? We did wrongfully convict you. And then I get compensated for that. Guess what? It's been 14 years. I still ain't heard nothing on my case. So don't be believing people that be telling you I'm about to get back on the appeal and blah, blah, blah. Look, man, unless the Supreme Court hit them with a court date, you can forget that person. I'm just being for real. Right? Nah. Another thing with Dog Case. At the beginning of him starting to talk, you heard what he said. He said he heard a noise. Like count time. I done told y'all about count. They lock everybody up in their cells. They come walk around with their pen and pad and make sure everybody is in their cell on their bunks. Right? And you can literally hear them walking. This is how quiet it be in the hallways. You hear the cops walking by. You hear their keys swinging. You hear their walkie-talkies going off. You hear them chewing gum. You hear them talking shit to other inmates that's in their cells. You hear everything. So what Dog was saying, he was hearing noises, it could have been a list of things. I just gave you a couple of different noises that you will hear during the count. But like he was saying, he heard a noise. And he had to catch himself like, damn, I'm not in there no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm free. I'm not in there no more. This not count time. I'm free. It take time to adjust back to the world when you get out of prison. That's why when people that go to prison, been in prison for a long time, and they come home and they be on that penitentiary shit, they call it institutionalized. Institutionalized mean you've been in prison so long, all you know is prison. That's all you know is prison. You institutionalized. Bro been gone 30 years. You know he institutionalized. I only did 4, and everybody said I was institutionalized. You know what I'm saying? I came out calling the shower a box and all that shit. Because in prison, the shower is called the box. Niggas be like, man, go get in the box. You musty as hell. You know what I'm saying? I mean, go take a shower. I came home, I was saying that shit to everybody, like, man, I need to get in the box. You know what I'm saying? Niggas like, what the fuck you mean get in the box? Nigga, you planning on dying or something? What are you talking about? Nah, I need to hop in the shower. Where's some soap and a rag? You know what I'm saying? I need to go wise up. I'm a little musty right now. Niggas had to get on my lingo because I was institutionalized. Also, I'm still adjusting back to the world. So I got to learn back on their time. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been in prison so long, all I know is prison terms and prison talk and how things go in prison, right? Same thing with Dog. And he did way more time than me. So I felt him when he said he was hearing noises and he thought it was like count time or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit fuck you up in the mind. Like he said, he wished that cop that arrested him, that ran up in his house and arrested him for no reason, but because whoever that cop was, he had rank, and all of the other detectives around him, they followed his suit. And he said he wished that cop can go to prison to experience what he experienced, him being dehumanized, meaning being institutionalized. This is why I told y'all prison is not for you. It's not no party in there. It ain't what people call home and make y'all think it is. It's not that at all. You real life rotting in that bitch. And I know I just said earlier, bro, been preserved. Yes, you get preserved and you rot at the same time. Because guess what? Time don't stop. Maybe your features and everything become real healthy because of how you eating and how you moving and things like that. But guess what? Your age keep progressing. So you are rotten in a sense. You might keep your mind sharp and your body, sharp and everything. But that time is going away. And that's the whole point of prison, is to take your time from you. They don't care how healthy you get in there, and they don't care how big you get. They don't care how many weights you lift or how many laps you can run around the back 40 or none of that. None of that mean nothing. Your time. That's what means something. You could be the biggest gangbanger on the yard, all of that. Everybody respect you. All the COs fuck with you. All of that shit. You still losing your life. I done told y'all about this guy named Dial. His name was Jeffrey Dye. He was a Mobite. With the Mobites, they got 2 sets of different guys they got under their umbrella. They called the Bays and the Eels. The Bays side of the Mobites, those are like the cool, calm, collected, peaceful guys that, don't be on that stupid shit. They more religious and uplifting and, want to help you out. The Eel side is the rebellious side. Them the gangbangers, fuck you up, all of that, but they still under the Mobite umbrella. They still religious. They still practice and pray and do all of that. But them the ones that's on go. So anyway, Jeffrey Dye, which was Dial. Well, we called him Dial, because we just wouldn't say Dial. So he went by Dial. But he was an eel of the Mobites. So that means he was one of them guys that was on tip. Now look, Dial was one of the most respected guys in prison. But he had a life bit. He was in his 50s. He literally looked like he might have been late 20s, early 30s. Diesel as hell, cut the fuck up, all of that. You know what I'm saying? My point is that he was preserved. He looked real healthy. He worked out all the time. He had a body any one of y'all would want. And he was in his 50s. But guess what? Did none of that mean shit because they had his time. They had his time. His life was just riding away in there. And I done tried to look him up a few times. And he don't even pop up. I think he might have died in there. You know, if anybody can find him, his name is Jeffrey Dye. D-Y-E. Number 149800. So if you think I'm bullshit making up something, I just gave his whole name and his 6-digit prison number. So you could try and look him up yourself. But that man had a life big. He killed somebody at 18 years old, and that was it. By the time I bumped into him, he had 30-something years in. Like I said, he was perfectly healthy, like perfectly. But he had already did 30 years in prison. So all that healthy, fit shit, it didn't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like he could take it out to the world and show it to a woman, have a woman all impressed with him, or, you know, have guys around him that want to be motivated to be built like him, or none of that. He couldn't be no motivational speaker to the world, or none of that. He had a life bit in prison. You know what I'm saying? Another thing with the guy that was saying that was wrongfully convicted, right? He was saying how you're a number. I told y'all that. You are just a number in there. You're a nobody. You're just 6 numbers, 7 numbers, 5 numbers. Whatever state you in, however they run the numbers, you not big boss dog you was out in the streets no more. You ain't that. You is fucking 6 fucking numbers. That's all you is in there. Again, what he was saying about the dehumanizing, the institutionalizing part, the 6 numbers is a part of the institutionalization. You know what I'm saying? You a number, man. So like how I be telling y'all about these celebrities that be getting locked up and shit, and you know, people be in the comments like, oh man, he got money. Oh man, he such and such. Oh man, he gonna be protected. Oh man, the religious guys gonna be there for him. Oh man, oh man. That shit don't mean nothing in prison. Absolutely nothing. You know what? Now that I think about it, I can't think of the guy's name. But I know y'all done heard this song. This was a big song back in the 90s. It was called Soulful Morning. You could probably look up the song. It'll come up. Soulful Morning. Soulful morning, soulful morning. That song. Look it up right now. It's from the 90s. Like I said, I can't remember his name. But you can look up the song Soulful Morning. You will hear the beat. You will hear him come on. Ooh, baby, baby. You going to hear it. This is the guy I'm talking about. Him right here. I'm about to speak on him real quick. He was big in the 90s. Everybody loved him. He was that dude. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, I think he's from Detroit. I'm not sure. But I think he was. But everybody loved him. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Right? Supposedly he had killed his girlfriend or some shit. You know what I'm saying? He got life in prison. I was in prison with him. When I was on Adrian Yard, I was on the yard with him. That same guy that made that song that everybody loved and all of that shit, right? Now, look, bro was about that life. You know what I'm saying? He was good on the yard and all of that, you know? But he was a nobody. Everybody in there knew what he was famous for. Everybody knew his songs and shit like that. But guess what? Don't nobody care. Your story time in prison only goes so far. Because your life stopped when you get there. So your story time, you only got so many stories, and then people gonna be like, all right, we tired of hearing that shit. We don't care no more. We don't give a fuck. And that's my point that I'm giving to y'all about the guy that made the Soulful Morning song. You know, he made a hit song. He well known. You know what I'm saying? And he a nobody in prison. A nobody. Because don't nobody care, man. You're not who you was in the world in prison. You are 6 numbers. And most of the time, you got to start your rep all over again when you get to prison. You know what I'm saying? So stop thinking that because you have money and shit like that out here that you safe in prison. It don't work like that, man. It don't work like that. And bro himself just said it. You are numbers. You not King R. Kelly. You not P. Diddy. You not Lil Durk. You are numbers. So stop believing because you had got a little buzz out here in the streets before you got locked up, you gonna be good in there. Don't work like that, man. I done told y'all about the Clevelands in prison. The big, bulky guys that look like my man's off Green Mile. It's so many of them up in there. They don't care nothing about who you was on the street. They about to get your ass together. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them Clevelands in there, they never even heard of you. They never even seen you. A lot of them Clevelands, they've been gone 20 plus years. And they don't even watch TV. And the TV that they do watch, it ain't no music video, so they don't even know who the fuck you is. So stop thinking because these celebrities got a buzz and all of that the Clevelands in prison is gonna care. Because they don't. And the Cleveland that I spoke on, he like the transitional guys. You got Clevelands in there that like straight heterosexual men. So don't think that you gotta have titties or whatever to, get grabbed up by a Cleveland. Like, no, you could be exactly who you is and get snatched up by a Cleveland. This is my whole point. Prison is not for you, man. And this guy right here, he just proved it off a wrongful conviction. You know what I'm saying? He was wrongfully convicted. So this just go to show you, you have to protect yourself at all times because your freedom, and I just spoke about this, about prison not being for you, about your freedom. Your freedom can get took from you at any given moment. This guy was in his home chilling. The boys ran up in there and snatched his ass up. He haven't seen that house in 30 years. That was a part of his freedom that he was missing. Was just that house, the house that he got snatched up out of. Do you know how many times he thought about getting snatched up out that house and never seen that house for the next 30 years? Yes, that fuck with your mental, man. You know what I'm saying? So be careful out here when you committing crimes because it can go two ways. You might get away with it. You might not. You also could be around people that's committing crimes and you're not committing the crimes with them, but you can go down for them. Be careful out here. Make wise decisions. Live your life. Take care of your kids. Travel. Live it up. We only got one shot at this shit. And guess what? Prison ain't the shot for you. Unless you want it to be. That's on you. It's been another episode of Roll Up a Power Up. So get your blunts rolled and your drink poured.